Okay, a month or so ago, they had the Davos, Switzerland World Economic Forum, kind of the public Bilderberger meeting, but a lot happens behind the scenes. Daniel has now gotten intel from his sources. He joins us from Spain. He's coming to the U.S. here very soon for a tour. His new book, of course, we carry at Infowars.com, a new edition. The Bilderberger Group, incredibly powerful. Daniel, good to have you on with us. Break down the latest info you've got on the direction of the New World Order.
Well, good afternoon, Alex. For your listeners, of course, I am in Spain. I am coming to the United States next week, and I'll be there for a couple of weeks, making some noise. Hopefully a lot of people will participate. Again, just the latest information from this year's Davos Forum. As you said, it's Mini Bilderberg Open. Of course, everybody talks about it. Nobody talks about Bilderberg. I wonder why. The message from Davos this year is one world, literally in every concept, shape, and form. The first point that these people talked about, again, behind the scenes, is the new hegemony. And, I just want to read you a couple of paragraphs from some of the, intel reports that we got. This is just one sentence. Wealthy individuals in the developed world have been among the greatest beneficiaries of globalization, leading a search for the highest risk-adjusted returns that has spread through other economies and social classes and into almost every nation in the world. Now, then there's the flip side to that. Just hang on a second. I'm going to flip to it. The same people are talking about at the opposite end of the spectrum, the other great beneficiaries of globalization, the wealthy, will have both altruistic and self-interested reasons to demonstrate that economic freedom. Now, again, very, very important. We're talking about one world. We're talking about wealth. And what is the clincher for this point is they were talking about in the same report, and this is the sentence, they're talking about where does one find a legitimate base for the power of corporate management to make decisions that can profoundly affect the economic life of nations. Well, this is very, very funny because
they're saying which global government node do we use?
Well, exactly, you got it. And what's so interesting about that phrase, Alex, again, this is paraphrasing almost to the letter what George Ball said in 1968 at the Bilderberg meeting in Mont-Tremblant in Canada. And his phrase, and literally I found it in my book, it is, where does one find a legitimate base for the power of corporate management to make decisions that will affect the lives of nations to whose governments they have only limited responsibility? Again, the message itself is very, very clear. The idea is the wholesale destruction of nation-states. The same points that people like David Rockefeller and Etienne Davignon and the Kissingers are talking about.
But now their big debate is, do they use NATO, the UN? It's all part of the same structure run by the same people, but they're kind of searching, even in public discussions now, about what will be the prime, dominant, highest tower in this global government fortress. From your inside knowledge in Bilderberg and Davos and in Europe, what are they leaning towards? Publicly, it looks like a super NATO.
Well, actually, what my people are telling me is just public posturing to get people involved one way or another to take sides. You know how it works. It's like, as if these were two football teams, you just decide which one you're going to bet on and play for. And I think that's basically the idea, because, again, the idea is the same.
False choice, yeah.
Absolutely, they're accelerating it. And what's amazing is how much of this stuff is coming into the open. They're no longer afraid, terrified, or worried or concerned about people standing up to them, whether it's before. It was always some kind of a hush-hush tones, double meaning in their language. Well, no longer is it. And that's one of the key things I think we have to understand and be very, very aware of. Another thing that they talked about this year at Davos, and again, I'm reading from one of the reports called The New Hegemony, is global citizenship. Now, what do you think is that all about?
Well, global citizens are minions of a global government.
Exactly. And again, it goes back to the same ideas we talked about before. How do you establish a David Rockefeller, utopian idea of the world where supranational sovereignty of world bankers, and superpowers supersede national auto-determination practiced in past centuries? And of course, There are different ways of looking at it, but basically the current parliamentary democracy works on a basis. You have a head of state, be it president or prime minister. You have a parliament, which of course can be eliminated, taken out in any kind of a crisis situation. And then of course you have a third branch of government in charge of the financial system called the world over the independent central banking systems, and we know how independent the Federal Reserve is, European Central Bank, and the Queen's Treasury in England. Of course, all of these institutions are heavily interlocked with Bilderberg, with New World Order, with Davos, with Trilateral Commission, CFR, etc., etc. Of course, so when we are talking about global citizens, we're not talking about the new hegemony. We're talking about basically the same thing.
Well, an example of you saying they're coming out. We know for 50 years they've had programs with toy makers and cartoon makers, and that's been declassified, pushing world government. You know, the new Fantastic Four always helps the UN. The toys are all UN soldiers now. But now Marvel Comics admitting free comic books to all American school kids, teaching them that world government is good and villains fight world government. I mean, that's just
I didn't know that. When was this?
They announced it a month ago.
Oh, really? We didn't get this in Europe. Okay, very interesting.
But the villains are people that fight the world government.
I see.
I mean, how base is that propaganda? How base is that?
Well, you know, another thing, speaking of base, another thing that these people talked about this year, that was, again, they are being very, very careful, because I think, again, this will be the key idea, is the destruction of nation states. Now, I got it from several people, which means it's obviously the truth. Now, you know, funny thing about the 20th century, I think, in my opinion, it will go down in future history of the century which is outstanding for the endless monotony of its popularly believed lies. Well, I think the 21st century, up to this point at least, is outstanding in how, you know, openly these people are discussing and promoting their one world order plans. And again, one of the key issues coming out of this year's Davos, and strangely enough, none of the multimedia corporate elite who were present actually talked about it. They spoke in droves about all these things they're going to do to help the world, but none of them spoke of the wholesale destruction plans for the nation state, which is the basis of what we have in the world.
Why, Daniel, why are they suddenly so much more confident? Because it looks like they're having a lot of problems on many fronts. Why are they so confident?
Well, you know, I don't know. People are saying that they're having a lot of problems on a lot of fronts. I'm frankly not seeing it, because, again, you see so many of them openly talking about, outspoken, about the same things that they were very hush-hush about 10, 15 years ago. They're coming out and openly talking about it. At least in Europe they do it. I imagine, obviously, in the United States and Canada as well, about the need to create a United Nations army, about the need for the Rapid Reaction Force, which is a European version of European army, about, you know, creating the North American Union, whereas before it was all dissimulated.
And of course, how globalism works is because it is globalized. When they create a European Union, the U.S. and Canada are already harmonizing publicly all their laws with them, and then Latin America harmonizes with us, and Asia harmonizes with Europe and the U.S. Aren't we really already under a global government? It's just...
Well, you know, for us, I think we are. You know, generally speaking, again, if you look at the European Union, it is one big country made up of 27 nations. You have North America, Canada, United States, and Mexico. And again, now with the latest, the American and Canadian armies are coming under one command. Of course, it's...
Oh, yeah, I wanted to get your take on that. We knew that 5 years ago. You had American Blackwater people searching you at the airport in Canada. Yeah, talk about that. Now they're just open...
you know, again, for the people who haven't, you know, who don't know the story, when I came this year, or last year in October, to promote my book in the United States, I came through Canada. Well, I was almost not let into my country, and that really brought it home. The people who searched my bags were asking me the most ridiculous questions you can imagine, were American security guards working through DIMCorp, contracted by the Canadian government, and they basically told me that we decide whether you get into Canada or not. And that really brought it home, that an American security contractor will tell a Canadian citizen whether he's allowed to enter his country or not. If people don't understand what that leads to, I think they better stick to Mickey Mouse and the Oscar nominations.
Well, reading the SPP documents from September that we got last year, from September '06, it was Northcom was running the meeting. Go ahead.
Oh, absolutely. When you and I were in Canada in 2006 in Canada covering Bilderberg, you and I, in the time that we spent together with Jim Tucker, we were talking about all the stuff going down, and again, goes all the way down back to 1996 when their plans were coming together for the creating of the North American Union by breaking Canada up into French and English-speaking Canada in order to merge the two parts together, Canada, English-speaking, and the United States. Of course, we stopped them. That was then. If you look at Canada today, fewer and fewer people are prepared to do this again. Why? Because I think, especially after 11 September, people are afraid. Their will to fight has been destroyed. The images of terrorists, just as in Stalinist Russia, there's terrorists in every street corner, has really brought it home who is running the show. And I don't know what the heck is going on, but I think, again, there is a reason why these people have lost their fear. I'm talking about the Bilderberger-led One World Order. I think, all of this is coming together very, very quickly, and unfortunately, they're basically saying to us, what you gonna do about it?